I really think that choosing a niche from a marketing standpoint is the only way to really dominate digitally. So, someone who is a brand new agent, depending on what they're trying to do, a lot of the time what you have to do is you have to niche down so that you actually learn the business piece by piece.
Welcome back to our show. My name is Jenny Woon.
I'm Tony Singh.
And we are here on In the House podcast. We are back with our second-time guest, Jess Lenouvel. She was on our episode 11.
That was when we first started.
In our first season, Jess. Welcome back.
Thanks for coming back.
I am so excited to be back here. Thank you.
And you have a different vibe, a different background. Tell us where you are right now.
Yeah, so middle of January, I moved to the Bahamas. So I live on a smaller island called Eleuthera. My husband and I moved here middle of January. We still travel a lot, so we've been kind of all over the place, but this is home base now, and it's been pretty fantastic, I have to say.
Why did you guys decide to move to the Bahamas? Out of all the places that you could move to in the world.
Yeah, we looked at a lot of different places, and we had some criteria that was really important to us, one of which was proximity to family. So both my family and my husband's mom are still in Toronto. So we really wanted to be kind of easily accessible. It's a 2.5-hour flight from here. So it's really, really easy for us to go back and forth. I was in Toronto last week. I did my audiobook recording at a studio in Toronto, and then I was able to, hang out with my mom and see my family and see some of my friends. So that was one of the reasons why this particular location was really important. The other thing is I'm not one of those people who likes dark, murky water. So a lot of the islands that we looked at, I don't want to be in the ocean if I can't see my feet. And the water in the Bahamas it's very blue, it's very clear, and in a lot of places it's really shallow, so you can walk out pretty far. That was important to me. I wanted to feel drawn into the ocean rather than feeling like I was just looking at it. And taxes, honestly, was one of the other reasons why the Bahamas was so attractive to us.
A lot of really successful people like yourself say something similar, that part of their motivation for moving away and kind of tapping out of that 9 to 5-ish, but creating their own life is kind of around taxes. We have really high taxes in Vancouver. Maybe we should consider moving away.
We looked at it pretty carefully in terms of how much we were personally, and then also how much the business was being taxed, and the fact that we didn't use a lot of the services that our taxes were paying for, but also it was it was part of the strategy, of course, but we did also know that no matter what, we were moving somewhere warm, so it was kind of a plus. It was just like a bonus that we looked at a couple of places like Honduras and things like that have high taxes, or like Costa Rica, or places like that have the weather and things like that, but that aren't as tax friendly.
What an exciting journey.
I want her life. Yeah. But that was my goal before I started the brokerage. And now
you'll be able to leave at some point. It'll be okay.
Because the water,
but
taxes.
Would you go to Cali or somewhere else? Because Cali has high taxes.
Oh, very high. I think almost all of my entrepreneurial friends that lived in California have moved. They've all gone to Austin or somewhere in Tennessee, like Nashville or something like that.
That's what I'm hearing too. A lot of the tech companies are moving to Austin, Texas. But it's a good point. I don't have kids, and I don't use the healthcare system.
Yet.
And well, no, I want to remain healthy.
No, I meant the kids thing.
Oh, okay.
Well, and that's one of the things,
so-
Jenny, it really does make it easier. The no kids thing.
Yes, it would.
does.
But for those of our audience that don't know Jess, maybe they didn't listen to the 11th episode.
Right.
Why don't you introduce her?
Yeah, Jess, you and I go way back to my sister's wedding when we first met. And not to repeat myself, but I wanted to bring you on again because you have a new book, and that's why you're in Ontario last week. So I wanted to introduce you to our listeners. First off, founder of Listings Lab and author of your new book, More Money, Less Hustle. So I actually bought 5 myself. And before we get started, I wanted to tell everyone who's listening, for anyone who's listening to this episode, if you can screenshot just something, just to mention that you're listening, tagging. Jess, what's your tag? What's the best account to tag?
So if it's Instagram, it's at Jess Lenouvel, Lenouvel.
Okay. So tag Jess, and we will give you, we will have one winner. We're going to pick one winner to win a book. So it's a book giveaway on this episode. So when it's being released on Wednesday, episode number 92, tag us.
Tag us
Tag
and Jess.
And we're going to pick one winner to receive this book. So
I love it.
Let's get started.
That's exciting.
Yeah, let's talk about this book. First off, in season 2, we started asking everyone, what is your spirit animal? But I'm going to change things up.
Yeah, I saw
if you
that.
don't mind, Tony.
Nope, not at all.
What is your superpower, Jess?
That's a really great question. And I don't know if anybody's ever asked me that. I would say it is speed. I move very quickly.
Speed.
That's interesting because you're also working less.
I am.
So speed, but having more and then working less.
If
So say a little bit more about speed.
Yeah, so the reason why that popped into my head is I had a coach a couple years ago who he used to say all the time, he used to use me as an example a lot, and he would say, Jess's speed. That we would be talking about something and something would come up that, normally someone would write it down and then implement after. And he could see my eyes and he would say, she's doing it right now. Like she's implementing, or she's sending a message to her team, or, she's putting the wheels in motion right as the idea happens. And I think that has served me incredibly well. Part of speed being your superpower is also not being afraid to fail or not being afraid to make a mistake. So I think a lot of what has allowed me to collect data is the fact that I move so quickly. And if something doesn't, I have a hypothesis, I think something's going to work a certain way, and I implement it within minutes, I get the feedback a lot faster than someone who procrastinates or is a perfectionist about it or whatever. And then with that feedback, whether it's positive or negative, I can iterate. And so I tend to get results a lot faster than someone who is a slow implementer.
Okay, I like that a lot.
That's a great explanation. And so I think often most agents come into this business not really being informed of the unsexy part of the business. So they look at the unlimited potential, they look at the freedom that they can get, being an entrepreneur, setting up their own schedule. Those are many reasons why agents become licensed and sell real estate. But the market has really changed between, when you and I started, when you started in the business. Social media and the digital age has really come together and added a lot of different elements to it. So we talked about this in the first time we chatted, but let's talk about the ROI, the relevancy, omnipresence and intimacy before we go into certain chapters that I dog-eared in this book. So let's just maybe touch on the top three there for now.
Yeah, of course. So the listings lab method, or that ROI framework, really comes down to the three things that have to be present in your marketing in order for it to be successful, and in order for you to be able to actually create inbound business. Now, in the normal kind of day-to-day way that training so often is created in the real estate space, it tends to be very manual. And a lot of what we teach is about attraction rather than chasing. The reason why that is so important is from a scalability standpoint. So there's not a lot of people out there that are building, especially from the beginning, something that is really going to be unlimitedly scalable. And that's really the only way to have that kind of trifecta that Jenny was talking about before, which is, that ceiling-free income potential, the being able to have the freedom or set your own schedule. And the third piece is why most people get into real estate is because they want to help people. They want to have some sort of a positive impact on people's lives. So because of that, it really is important that you're able to generate business without having to take up 3/4 of your day or even half of your day, quote unquote, lead generating or creating connection. And so the way that this system works, or the way that this method works, is basically what we're doing is we're giving people everything that they need to choose us. We're creating top of mind awareness with that incredibly relevant message, and we're creating relationships or connection at scale. And so the relevancy piece really falls under the, are you using messaging that helps that person feel like you're inside their brain, which is really all really good marketing is being able to articulate what's in the back of your ideal client's head better than they can. Being able to take that super niche down relevant message and be everywhere with it. So that's the omnipresence part of it, which is showing up everywhere that is relevant to that ideal client in an automatic way. So again, we're taking someone from stranger to client with consistency and frequency and relevant messaging, and we're doing it automatically, so that there's very little manual output that's required from the agent, so that the agent then has more time, more energy to work on the business rather than in the business.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And Jess, would you say that a good way to go about niching would be to pick one first prior to, if you're just getting started in the business, would an agent pick one specifically first, or would you try it out for a little while, see who you kind of like to work with and find your competitive advantage and niche that way?
I really think that choosing a niche from a marketing standpoint is the only way to really dominate digitally. So, someone who is a brand new agent, depending on what they're trying to do, a lot of the time what you have to do is you have to niche down so that you actually learn the business piece by piece. If you're a generalist, there's so many generalists out there, especially if you're new, you are going to get filtered out through the rest of the noise that's in the real estate space, right? A lot of the time, new agents, they don't get the proper training. They don't necessarily join a team, which most newer agents probably should, or should be joining a brokerage that is really genuinely going to guide them, which there are very few. So what I would suggest is, niche down in terms of who you are, who is actually going to resonate with you, right? If you're 21 years old and you get a brand new license, should you necessarily be going after luxury upsizers? Probably not. Because not only do you not have the expertise there, but you probably also don't have the life experience in order to create messaging to resonate with those people. So, as you start to grow that kind of baseline business, it is actually easier to niche down and become an expert in one specific niche than it is to try to be a generalist. You need to know a lot less, because you have to, from a marketing standpoint, only understand one demographic, one set of pains, one set of problems, one set of fears, one set of desires. And then from a delivery standpoint, you're able to learn how to deliver specific specialized services to that one niche. And then as you get more experienced and your business grows, if you want to branch out into a second niche, or you want to change your niche at that point, because let's say that you started out, specializing in first-time buyers, and you're a couple years into the business, and those first-time buyers are now upsizers and they're now selling those first homes and buying something bigger, then you can actually grow alongside the niche that you originally chose, and the messaging will change, the needs and the value that you provide with your delivery process will change, but it allows you to kind of to grow with it. The other mistake that I see sometimes are agents who are quite young and inexperienced, and they're trying to work with seniors or downsizers. And seniors and downsizers a lot of it comes down to actually being able to resonate or understand the emotional process. And it's almost impossible for someone who's in their 20s to understand what it feels like to downsize, or to sell the home that someone's been in for 30 years in order to move to assisted living, right? So I think that it is really important to kind of stay in your lane, figure out who is going to resonate with you, and be okay really being focused for a period of time until you can really build out that foundation.
Yeah, you took the words out of my mouth, Jess, about staying in your lane and simplifying this process. It sounds so simple the way you just explained it. And so in this age of like social media, there's so many platforms to use, it can get really overwhelming. And so it sounds like from a first-time buyer's agent to maybe someone who likes to work with a downsizer, someone who's upsizing or in the luxury market, is there maybe a pattern you've seen where an agent would use a certain platform or social media app that would be more kind of geared towards that particular niche, because there's so many options out there right
Yes.
now?
Good question.
So part of what we teach is that perfect message at the perfect time on the perfect platform. And the platform is, so often agents will ask me, what platform should I be on? Should I be using TikTok? Should I be on Facebook? Well, the answer to that question is, who is your niche and where do they spend their time, right? Like, for instance, I spend a lot of time still creating for Facebook. Is it my absolute favorite platform to spend my time on? No. But it is the most lucrative place for me to attract the people and connect with the people that I want to be connecting with. So the place where you spend your time may not necessarily be where you spend your marketing work time. So a lot of the time, part of your market research when you're creating your messaging and you're creating your essentially your framework for what your message is going to be right across from stranger to client, from that psychological journey section of your nurture sequences, part of that is also figuring out what the right platform or what the top 2 platforms are going to be for you to actually start to attract those people. I think way too many agents try to be on every platform and they don't actually do any of them particularly well.
There are a lot of agents that are really wanting to connect with their proper audience and maybe work on that niche. And some of them tend to have difficulty getting in front of the actual camera in terms of filming anything. Do you have one piece of advice for those agents that are really wanting to expand their audience to the right audience and how to overcome those fears of not being seen?
I don't think that we live in a world anymore where you can avoid video. And I do understand it. I remember when I first started doing creating videos for proper marketing, I used to record on the roof of my building because I was so nervous about people. I couldn't even do it with my husband in the room. It was just, I hated every part of it. And I couldn't watch the videos after. I think a lot of it comes down to fear of judgment. And, none of us like the way that we look on video, really. We're like, oh, is that really what I sound like? Is that what I look like? And really at the end of the day, video is just it's just a form of connection. And just showing up and having a conversation and being able to have somebody see you, hear the way you speak, see how you talk with your hands, listen to your voice. It gives someone a comfort level. It's kind of like, have you ever met somebody who like wouldn't take their sunglasses off? And there's something that feels very shady and like you can't see their eyes and like you get like kind of like a weird feeling about it, right? It's the same thing with video. People need to be able to experience a certain level of you. And the idea behind it is you're creating an element of like local celebrity, or you're creating an element of that, elusive know, like, and trust. From a marketing standpoint, you can't do that unless someone can actually experience you. And this isn't, I think that what really stops people, again, is the fear of judgment and perfectionism, right? And, I'll start recording videos when I lose 10 pounds. Or my hair and my makeup aren't done today. Or, whatever that is. There's always going to be a reason why not.
And what I'm hearing, Jess, is that most people are more concerned about how they look, how they sound, than actually delivering value. And then that's what stops them from the recordings.
100%. And, the thing that for me really made a difference is I'm just the vehicle for the message. It's not really about me. It's not about what I look like. It's not going to, and frankly, if somebody doesn't like the fact that I don't have a full face of makeup on and my hair's in a scrunchie, I probably don't really want to work with them anyway. They're not really going to be my people. Part of video is being able to attract your people as well, and having the people who are going to, be good clients and who are going to trust you and to, are attracted to who you are and your personality, and, maybe the fact that you laugh a little too loud, like the things that you think are quirky or weird, other people are going to love. If you think about like your partner or your best friend, or, the things that they love about you, there's this incredible opportunity to create an entire audience of people who also love those things about you. And I think that we're so worried about someone not liking us that we forget about attracting the people who are going to love us. And I would rather have 1,000 people who absolutely love me than have 100,000 people who kind of like me. And that's really how you're going to grow like an engaged and loyal audience.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, I am very loyal to your book here, More Money, Less Hustle, Becoming the Seven-Figure Real Estate Agent. Everyone's got to pick one up. I have a question from chapter 4, pillar 3 for you about signature system.
Mm-hmm.
And can you tell us a little bit more about this and how it services, how an agent can use this to service their client?
Yeah. So, just like, and I'm going to say something that might be a little bit crazy for some people to hear, but you don't actually sell real estate. You sell services and you consult on the sale of real estate. And your signature system or your signature process should be named and branded and marketed alongside your name, because it's your product. Every business has something that they sell. It's either they have some sort of a product. Your signature system is your product. And if you are only selling yourself, your business is completely unscalable. Because if you're magic, then no one else can be you. Yeah, I mean, I can give you an example. I want to give you like a real example and not make one up. So we had a woman who came through the program a couple years ago. She was in New York City, and she specialized in essentially like high-powered, A-type personality corporate women. And a lot of the time in that niche, at the time the market was moving very quickly. And what was happening is the client wasn't comfortable with anyone else making a decision for her. So what would happen is listings would come on the market, and by the time she had time to actually go out and look at them, they only ever got through a couple of them because time was an issue, and she would miss out And it was like this constant thing where this agent was like, I have these clients that are, motivated, but between their schedules and the pace of the market and how, how micromanagey they are, I feel like I'm banging my head against a wall. And they're getting frustrated and I'm getting frustrated because they're missing out on places that probably could be perfect, but we just can't seem to make it work. We can't get in. So she created basically a system to alleviate these issues. So just like so many of us do when we first start working with a buyer, it's, what are the must-haves? What are the would-be nices? And then basically they created a numbered ranking system. And so every time something came on the market, it got populated into a report, which she didn't have to create. She had an assistant that did it. A report was created that ranked every single property in order. And they had a standing time, once or twice a week, that they would go and look at everything that was available, and they only looked at the first 3 on the report. So not only was this person who is super A-type and loves reports and documents and things like that getting sent a report every couple of days, but then it was very clear on what was being shown, why it was being shown, when it was being shown, and it solved all of the problems. Because it wasn't that they were trying to go and look at 20 places in, every week. It was, well, here are the top 3. These are, we have agreed and come to a mutual understanding that based on this quote unquote algorithm, that these are the top 3 and this is what we do. Her business absolutely exploded and she ended up doing so much more business because her clients were happy. They were being given everything that they needed from who they were, deep understanding of their personalities and their issues. And on top of that, she was getting more business done because she wasn't wasting so much time showing people stuff that they weren't going to buy.
That's actually a really great example. Yeah. And that works perfectly for type A personalities.
Mm-hmm.
If it was a different type of niche, that system would not work. It would not be effective.
Yeah. So this is what we mean by really customizing it.
Yeah, that's very detailed, very detailed. And she's obviously working with people too that would probably make a quick decision, right? As long as you have the information. So I'm surprised that I'm actually liking that a lot. It reminds me of my wedding planner. Her niche is also type A women. Anyhow, can you share with us a successful story, maybe from a compelling brand perspective of a agent maybe that you guys have worked with, who maybe didn't have any followers, they weren't using a platform whatsoever, and they hadn't defined their ideal client?
Yes. So actually, you know what? I'll use the example. He's on a plane right now on his way to visit me. He and I started working together March of 2020, right at the very beginning of COVID. He grew up in the industry. So we actually had a very similar background. His mom has been in the industry for a long time, and he's in a suburb of Toronto. He's super family oriented. So he has 3 kids, he's married, and because he grew up in the industry, he specifically said, I don't want to be the type of father, or I don't want to be the type of parent that, that I kind of had. He loves his parents so much, but they were never around, because, we didn't have this technology when he was a kid or while he was growing up, and the opportunities were very different. And he has 2 sons that play hockey and a daughter who dances. And he really wanted to make sure that he was at every hockey game and every dance recital. And he wanted to be that kind of father. It was really important to him. When I met him, he had a business. He was a single agent. He was doing about 100 to 150,000. He just sold his house because his expenses had been too high. And he was renting. And he was struggling. He was really struggling. And it was a really big hit to his ego because he grown up in the business, and his mom had a 7-figure real estate business, and it was hard for him. So we started working on things. He was difficult to coach in the beginning because he really did feel like he knew everything. And somehow he kind of put his ego aside, and we really got down to work. And he works with young families or upsizers in Burlington, which is a suburb of Toronto. And he developed something called the home run method. So there's a lot of like, sports dads and moms and things like that. So he developed the home run method that is very specifically geared towards his target demographic. Within 8 months, he had organically, through social media and the messaging that we built with him, he generated $800,000 in commissions in 8 months. And he has a 7-figure team now. He spends a lot of time, he's on his way to the Bahamas to hang out with me. His team runs like clockwork. He's got a great system built. His back-end operations are really tight. He basically everything that's in More Money, Less Hustle, everything that's in this book, we applied to his business. And he's kind of the shining star.
So besides the investment in Listings Lab and utilizing your team, what's his investment cost? Like, what's his time to grow it to where he is now from the very beginning? Obviously, I think for a lot of agents, they don't have a lot of equity. They don't have a lot of money to put into the business, or they weren't expecting to put this amount of money into the business. So how do they organically reach this?
Justin as an example, we didn't start him on ads or paid traffic until he had a couple $100,000, like really, really going from organic. So exactly the same principles that we use for paid traffic can be used organically. So most of his business comes from Facebook. It's where he has the strongest audience. Everyone on his team now also follows the same principles, and also content creation and that marketing piece is a foundation of his business. People cannot be on his team unless they are following the Listings Lab method. It's basically the foundation for everything that they do from a business generation standpoint. And then once he got to a certain level and he was comfortable, and the message was vetted and was tested and was working, and we knew that it was effective, only then did we actually start putting money behind it in order to create something that was a little bit more scalable.
Such a good success story. Jess, could you share with us the 9-point psychological messaging sequences that can turn strangers into loyal customers?
So if I was going to dig into the 9 points, we'd probably need another hour. So I'm going to break it down and simplify it into 3 buckets. Our 3 major buckets, if you look at this at the 9 points, would fall into authority value, personal, and social proof. So authority value has to be niche specific. It's going to be things like pain problem. So basically like poking the problem, showing that you understand exactly what that person is going through and what is actually driving their desire possibly to move. It's going to include authority content like answering questions and things like that. Every single question you get from a client is a content piece. So often I hear from people, I don't know what to talk about, I don't know what to write about. Well, people are asking you questions and you are giving that kind of value every single day. Answer the questions on a social media platform. Process solution, so actually walking people through your signature system and why things are done in a specific order and why things are done the way that you do them for your specific niche. And myth busting. Myth busting is incredibly effective. So things like, the truth behind open houses, or what does sold over asking really mean? Like things like that kind of shine a light on some of the misunderstood or old school tactics that have existed in real estate for so long. That tends to fall really well under authority value. Then, or from a personal content standpoint, personal content's probably the piece that most agents are missing. It really comes down to people can't know you or like you or trust you if they know nothing about you. And this can be things like lifestyle content, personal story, personal philosophy, personal beliefs. These are the types of pieces of content that will have people make the emotional connection to you. And people make decisions emotionally before they make them logically. So it really comes down to giving people points of resonance. If somebody sees you in the grocery store and they've been following you for a while, I want them to feel comfortable enough to come up to you and ask you about how lucky your dog is. They need to know the name of your dog and what kind of dog you have. And you don't have to share every deep, dark secret that you have. You just have to give them certain points of resonance that they can feel like they know you. They don't have to know your childhood trauma. If you want to share that, you go right ahead. But there's an element of personal connection that is an incredibly important part of marketing. I use the example sometimes of even some of the biggest corporations out there, their CEOs or their leaders are also celebrities. And it's not only because they're incredibly wealthy, but it's also because people need a face behind the brand. People need to feel a certain level of trust with another human being. So there's that element, the personal element. And then the last bucket is social proof. Social proof is not just listed, just sold. And I think this is where I think a lot of agents get lost or don't know how to do this effectively. Showing people you have business does not generate more business. So the key to social proof, if I was going to give like 3 examples, it's case studies, testimonials, and PR. So case studies are basically stories of your clients. When you just ask me for a success story, that's a case study. Right? It's the story of someone from start to finish and where they were when they started working with you, where they ended up, and what happened in between. I probably said this on our last podcast, but HGTV is an entire network of case studies. And it's why people love it so much, because we love to live vicariously through other people. And when I was thinking about moving to the Bahamas, I watched every single episode of Bahamas Life on HGTV. And it gave me it was just this whole, if she can do it, I can do it. And, it really gives people not only an element of trust. I actually ended up working, my real estate agent who helped me buy my house in the Bahamas was one of the real estate agents on Bahamas Life. So it really does help to kind of tell the story of your client. And instead of saying, look at me, look how great I am, what you're doing is you're actually demonstrating your signature process and why it was so effective through the story, telling the story of your client. So it basically humbly or systematically talks about why you do what you do and how you do it without bragging. And without having that typical real estate, I'm number one, look at me, just listed, just sold. The second part of that is testimonials. Now, testimonials, in my opinion, should always be screenshots. Unfortunately, we live in a world where people fake reviews and they fake testimonials. I actually had another coach last year take the testimonials off of my website and put them on hers, right? So I think that it happens. And when we see something that is put in Canva and really doctored and super, super branded, there's something less trustworthy about it. So even though it may not fit your brand aesthetic and the way that you want to put things out there, a screenshot is a lot more trustworthy. So screenshots of testimonials, screenshots of reviews, screenshots of emails will always be the most trustworthy. And so from a testimonial standpoint, that really is really helpful. And then PR is probably one of the least utilized pieces of content in the real estate space. The thing I think that people don't realize is that every journalist, every person with a podcast, every person out there who is creating any kind of content when they have an audience, they're also content creators. and they're also looking for resources, and they're looking for, especially like newspaper and blogs and, you know, all of these places, they're constantly looking for things to talk about and experts to quote. And, you know, you can be that journalist's go-to person to comment on the real estate market. You don't have to, people who get lots of PR, a lot of the time people assume that they're being approached all the time by these media outlets. And a lot of the time that's not true. They're approaching the media outlets and saying, hey, you know, I have an opinion, or I'd really love to make things easier for you, or, you know, just building that relationship. We have a couple of agents in Toronto that are quoted in the Toronto Star on a regular basis. They get a tremendous amount of business from that because it gives them an extra level of authority and an extra level of credibility. And that relationship came about because that agent reached out to the reporter and said, can I help you? Like, is there anything that you need? Do you need a quote? Do you need help? Do you need me to pull market reports for you? Like, what do you need? And it's kind of it's a win-win for both sides. And the PR standpoint, not only are you exposed to that media outlet or that, you know, that person's audience, but you're also able to use what, like, each and every article or each and every piece of PR to build more authority and more credibility in front of your own audience.
Jess, on your website, at the back of your book, thelistingslab.com/7FA, there's an opportunity for agents to download a starter kit. And what you just talked about, the three monumental, like, messaging in sequence, is actually that the calendar's in there. So I just wanted to mention that to our listeners, that they should tune into or log into this website.
Yeah, so the seven-figure agent starter kit that is that website, it is actually a course. It's a course walkthrough based on the book. So if you read the book, if I put everything in the book, no one would ever finish it. So basically what we've done is for every pillar in the book, there's actually a training or an exercise associated with it. So what you're able to do is read the book, and then as you go through it, you also have the actual course. It's the course or some extra resources that we couldn't get into the book, or we couldn't fit into the book, or it just didn't make sense to, or their videos or whatever. And so it's kind of the complement, the free complement to each of the pillars or each of the modules in the book.
Mm-hmm. And I have to compliment you, as in thank you, because it is very, very useful, the resource, and very easy to follow. So it's in modules, and as soon as you want to click to the next section, it says completed next module. You can always go back to the previous modules. There's worksheets, but also recorded Facebook sessions as well.
Yep. So what we've done is, like, trainings that I've done or things that complement what's in that chapter of the book. We added those into them so that people weren't having to go to my YouTube channel or having to go here, having to go there to try to find more. We wanted to compile into one place so that there's an element of the what and the how.
I have a question about one of the sections here. I'm going to read it a little bit here. You're going to pay someone $20 an hour to do it for 20 hours per week, but software or technology can do it for a monthly fee of $125. So let's talk about automation and adding in not just a CRM, because that's a client management, but an automation system that will help you streamline your business and kind of work while you are sleeping. So is there a client management system that you would recommend?
Yeah. So, I mean, from a CRM standpoint, I think that so many people think of a CRM as my business has a system. And that's not really the case. It depends on what you're adding on to the actual CRM itself. I really love Follow Up Boss. It's the client management system that we use in our seven-figure agent programs. All of our automations and all of our, like, pre-done systems, so your contract to close, all of the marketing sequences, all of that, we actually have created in such a way that they can just be dropped into someone's follow-up boss. The other reason I like it is because it works with and it integrates with other software like Airtable or other project management systems and things like that really, really easily. So it as of right now is the one that we recommend the most. And we're working on actually building a stronger relationship with Follow Up Boss right now in terms of us being able to advise with them and also possibly build something out that's a little bit custom for us, that we don't have to necessarily do the manual work of like actually dropping all of these things into each person's Follow-Up Boss when they come into one of our programs. But like I said, like there's so many different pieces of it, and every single person's systems, their processes, their standard operating procedures, they're going to be slightly different depending on the market that they're in, what they specialize in, what their signature process looks like. The idea behind systematizing anything is to get something done easier and faster and with less time. And I think that we've all, been exposed to the same framework for so many years that once you become the bottleneck, that you hire an assistant, and then from there, there's this sort of order of the way that we've always been taught that we need to scale a business, and it's a little bit outdated because a lot of those systems were built before we had the technology we have, before we really had the internet the way that we have it now. And so, we always, and this is a Tim Ferriss philosophy that we use every single day. It's eliminate, automate, outsource. So the first thing that you do is you look at absolutely everything that's on someone's calendar or on someone, we do what we call an energy audit. And so we audit absolutely every single thing that is in someone's week, as an example. And we go through it and we say, can it be eliminated? Can it be automated? Can it be outsourced? And the answer usually is yes to eliminate or automate. And then only the things that can only be outsourced, that have to be done by a human being, only those things are then, can it be done by a VA first? Does it have to be done by someone here? Does it have to be done by someone in person or in the office? Can it be done by a virtual assistant? And then only then, like there's just so many layers here, right? That we don't go straight to full-time in-person local assistant, because there's so many people who can scale to 7 or multiple 7 figures.
It's a different mindset shift too, I suppose, than some of us are typically used to, right? Yeah. I want to bring it back just for a second to efficiency. Exactly. Well, you're a true testament, though, to working smarter.
Not harder.
So, yeah, not harder, just like your book. And I just wanted to bring it back for a minute to the listings lab, because it seems as though that was something that you had created that kind of spanned fast forwarding, the writing of your book, and they seem to complement each other very nicely. What can an agent expect when signing on with the Listings Lab, just I guess in terms of time commitment, costs, and outcome?
So we don't usually go through costs because we have 3 different programs. So normally what we'll do is we'll do an interview, because we don't just let anybody into the program. We're actually pretty careful about the type of person and the type of business and personalities and things like that we work with. Just like anybody else, we all know that, one bad client can take up the time and energy and bandwidth and happiness of 10 really good ones. So we are really careful about the application and the selection process to come into the Listings Lab, or any of our programs. So we have the accelerated agent that is geared towards agents that are under 6 figures. That is just 100% organic, social media based, like your basic foundations to get you to 6 figures. And then we have the Listings Lab, which is the marketing foundations from 6 to 7 figures. It's marketing only. And then we have our 7-figure agent program, which is systems, team and hiring, the full, like, let's build you a 7-figure business with freedom. And so that one, you have to be in and around like 200, I would say 200,000 is like the bare minimum to get into that program, because it really requires an element of like and you have to want to build a team from a scalability standpoint. So yeah, those are the 3 options. The support levels are very different for each program as well. The investments are vastly different depending on which program they're in. And it really is just sort of exactly what people need. I think that so often, just like agents, there are programs out there that just they believe that there's like a basket, and the more you throw into that basket, the more valuable things are. And really what that ends up doing, I think, for a lot of people is just distracting them from what they really need to be doing. So for each individual program, it's 100% curated to exactly and only what that person needs in order to get from where they are to where they want to be.
Amazing.
Love it.
I was on your website and you have an amazing group of people. You've mentioned that many times in your book, and you talk about CAPES, the acronym CAPES, which is, I feel like, so perfect. Our team members are superheroes, and each of the letters means something. Before we go into our 5 rapid fire questions to wrap everything up, do you want to just talk about why CAPES is so important to your business?
Absolutely. So CAPES are like the acronym CAPES is for our core values as a company. And we do everything by these core values. We hire by the core values, we fire by the core values, we review by the core values. And every person who comes into the Listings Lab or any of our programs has to be a core values fit. So the way that we break it down is C is for clear and compassionate communication. And the idea behind that is nothing gets left unsaid. There's clarity around absolutely everything, but it's done in a compassionate way. And it allows us to never have any miscommunications, or no one ever feels like they don't have everything that they need in order to be successful. A is for always celebrating. This is really a culture piece. We celebrate everything personally and professionally. We have a culture of celebration. So everything that we do gets celebrated. We celebrate each other. We celebrate our clients. We celebrate ourselves. It has been an absolute game changer in terms of the way that we do everything. And for each and every one of these core values, we're very specific about what being in alignment with the core value looks like and what being out of alignment with the core value looks like. So I would say that like the culture of our team is absolutely phenomenal. I have 14 people on my team, and we are incredibly close, incredibly supportive of each other, and genuinely, I think everybody loves each other. P is for personal responsibility.
Before you go into the P, you live in Bahamas. I'm assuming they live in cold and hot Ontario or all over the place. So how do you cultivate that culture when you're so far away? Well, only 2.5 hours by plane, but yeah, like how do you keep that together?
Our team is all over the place. We have team in Toronto, in Montreal, in Calgary, in Yorkton, Saskatchewan, in the Philippines, like in the States. Like our team is spread out all over North America. And I mean, just like anything else, like we talk all the time. We have Zoom meetings all the time. We do meet in person. Whenever, like as an example, I'm speaking at the Reality Conference for the Ontario Real Estate Association, we're the title sponsor in November. I'll fly a whole bunch of my team there in order to be there and support. We'll do some work. We'll have some fun. But each department of our company is, they work together very closely, but every department works with other departments, right? So everybody's in contact almost all the time. And even in our team meetings, we have a tremendously, I would say that like one of the things that's really important is that we take our work seriously, but not ourselves. And so there's an element of fun that is kind of like woven through everything that we do. And it's just an extremely relaxed environment. Part of the reason why we don't have a lot of issues is the P, which is the personal responsibility. And I think that people on our team almost take it to the extreme where, there's never blame. It's every single time something happens, it's, what was my role in it? There's never, because of the combination between the personal responsibility and the clear communication, there's very rarely anything that we call them any drama stacking, right? It doesn't happen. That we don't have disagreements on the team. If something doesn't go well, it's usually multiple people who will say, oh, that's on me. And then everything is very solution oriented. That element of personal responsibility is the opposite of being a victim. And so it happens all the time where there'll be something and we'll say, okay, we need to fix this, or this didn't go super well. And we'll have multiple people who will say, oh, I could have done this better, or I dropped the ball on this. And it makes the whole situation so much easier to solve because everybody's taking responsibility. And I think that that's very rare. I think that there's a lot of ego associated in a lot of people's workplaces, and we just have none of that. And it's a culture piece that we've cultivated very carefully over time. The E stands for evolutionary. So evolutionary as a person, as a business, everything's always growing. I will literally have team members who will come to me and say, hey, I saw this training. Can I do it? And we'll say, yep, we'll pay for it. Go for it. They're constantly looking for growth and how to make the company better, but how to make themselves better. It's phenomenal because as we all grow and as we all get better, then so does everything that we do. And then the last one, the S, is servant leadership, which the way that we define that is that everything has to be a win-win-win. So it has to be a win for us. It has to be a win for them. It has to be a win for the world. So we make all decisions based on that. We're never in a victimhood system. We're never taking advantage of anything or anyone. Everything is always a good thing for everyone. And that's been really, really helpful as well in terms of, and the other thing too, with all of these core values, I don't have to be involved in every decision because my team can look at a decision and say, well, how does this fit within the core values? And a lot of the time it's very clear whether it's a yes or a no.
Right.
Those core values are very powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for going into more detail about them.
Mm-hmm.
Jess, we know that you only had 50 minutes actually from the start. So do you need to get going now? Because we had the 5 rapid fire questions, but we might
That's
not
okay.
have time.
We got it. I've got a couple
let's go
minutes.
real quick. Okay. Your favorite thing to do now that you have a life in the Bahamas?
Read novels, not business books.
Good. What is one ritual you practice on a daily basis?
I journal every day.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, lovely.
Describe yourself in 3 words.
Fast, empathetic, and creative.
If there was one thing or service that a brokerage needs to offer to their agents to set them up for success, what should that be?
I think it's different for every agent. So what I would say is either an advance or help investing in support. There are brokerages out there now who are allowing people to join a training and it gets taken off of their next 5 deals. And I've been finding that really helps people to actually invest back in themselves.
Last question. How can our listeners buy your book?
Amazon.
Where can they find it? Amazon.
So, yeah, Amazon. If you go to, I mean, I'm assuming most of your listeners are in Canada, but we've got Canada, so .com or .ca. Just go to amazon.ca and type in either my name or More Money, Less Hustle, and it will come out. There's a Kindle edition. There's also a physical edition, and in a couple of months, there will be an audible version as well.
We had mentioned earlier, for anybody who is listening to our podcast, do a screenshot that you're listening to the episode, tag Jess Lenouvel, that's at JessLenouvel, and tag us as well, and you get a chance to win a book delivered by us in the House podcast. Well, thank you, Jess.
Thanks, Jess.
I appreciate your time, and I know that you probably have lots to get the day going. I appreciate your time again. It was so lovely to see you for the second time.
Thank you so much for having me. It was my absolute pleasure.